Hello, everyone, and welcome to Denise Live with real estate expert Denise Lonis. I'm your host, Lonis Group CEO Shauna Knapp, and today we're going to be talking about creating campaigns that get results. Too often, agents start a marketing effort without thinking it through, and then the campaign falls apart halfway executed before it could start to yield results. Well, this week, Denise and Shauna will be discussing how to create a marketing campaign and why right now is the time to plan. We're going to be covering campaign goals, targeting, budgeting, media, and frequency. This is the first in our three-part series on campaigns, and the coming weeks present a fantastic opportunity to begin to make an impression with a new group of people, and the structure Denise and our team will be presenting is going to help you do just that. This is being recorded and will be available for your access later in the Club Zebra Vault. And without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Denise. Denise, you want to address the sunglass situation? Just, oh.
No, I'm not in one of my favorite places, which is French Polynesia, needing my sunglasses, but I had eye surgery and I'm no glare computer allowed. So I am like declaring today. So bear with me. But I'm still here in spirit and strong. So, okay, campaigns by far are in my opinion, the most effective, efficient, predictable way to have success in your business, long term. Campaigns are not an instant fix. They're not going to be like, hey, I'm going to send out a mailing and 10 listings are going to rain down from heaven. That's not how it works. It never has worked that way. Every once in a while, if you have a good, if you have a good mailer that goes out and there's a compelling message, you might get a call or two. But the idea of campaigns is not necessarily I'm going to mail something out and get an instant lead. It's about getting yourself known out there and being in the right place at the right time when that moment arises, when that client may need to buy or sell real estate. People generally will take the path of least resistance. And I'm going to explain something. This is just something that since I'm talking about French Polynesian Bora Bora, I'm gonna address this, okay? Well, there is this. So I've been to French Polynesia now 3 or 4 times. Absolutely love it. I've been all over it, to Bora Bora, to Moorea, to Tahiti, to Rarotonga, to Taha. I've been all over. Absolutely love it. Okay. I would say I pretty much know everything that even a travel expert could know because I've been there multiple times. So I already know it. Okay. So let me just put that. I'm telling you this to give you an example. I already know all about it. And if I know all about it, my husband, Mr. Analytical, knows 10 times about it. Okay. Just this weekend, he says to me, I think I'm going to call Carl and talk to him about, I want to plan another trip to French Polynesia. And I said, why do you want to call Carl? You know everything that you could possibly know. I know, but Carl's an expert on the area and I want to get his opinion. And I'm thinking to myself, you're talking about this guy named Carl like he's your best friend, but Carl is simply a guy that he has a YouTube channel and I think it's called Tahiti by Carl. Okay. So Carl knows a lot about it for sure. Great guy. But I guess Dino signed up at some point on his website to get tips and ideas from, about French Polynesia. We've been going to French Polynesia for years and years. This guy, Carl, does a regular blog and he happens to send Dino these regular blog posts. Not me, I didn't sign up. The point I'm making is now we're going to go again, and Dino wants to, I guess, have a different experience, or he wants to go to places we've never been before. Okay. But what's he doing? He's never contacted Carl before. He actually really doesn't need it. He probably knows more than Carl does, guys, because Dino's been there so many times. The point I'm making is that Carl's in the right place at the right time. And Dino says, well, maybe we should go on one of Carl's trips. And the last thing Denise wants to do is go on anyone's trip because unfortunately, I don't like to be, on a time schedule. So I'm not a really good tour trip person. I'm more like, let me be free and in the moment. Well, Dino is the same way. But yet Dino says, well, I think, the stuff that I'm getting from Carl, it might be worth our while to at least talk to Carl. And I'm like, hey, go ahead, talk to Carl. The point is, sometime in the next day or two, my husband's probably going to talk to Carl, probably going to, because I'm not going to say no, book an amazing trip with Carl to go on some amazing adventure, and I'll probably go and have a wonderful time. But this would not have happened if Carl did not have a campaign. Carl's campaign is very simple. Tell people that don't know much about French Polynesia as much as you can about French Polynesia. Do it in a very non-selling, non-pushy way. And eventually, when they're ready, they will come back to talk to you. And that's exactly what happens in campaigns. When I was actively farming, geographical farming, or doing my own campaigns, I would have people that would say to me, "Oh yeah, you've been sending me stuff for 7 years. We always knew we would use you. We just weren't in the market to sell." It was always about a timing thing. So the thing you have to understand about campaigns is that a campaign is not an instant fix for your business. A campaign is not something that you wake up one day and go, "Oh, I've got no leads. I guess I've got to go create some." That's not. If you need instant leads, go get your physical person out of your house and go to, it could be some kind of a meeting, a networking group, an open house, a class, something where you're around people, and that's your best bet of getting that instant, or being in touch with your past client database. But if you want slow steady Eddie is a campaign. But what that also means is slow steady Eddie is not, it's not exciting, it's not thrilling, it's not instant, it's not a fast fix. It's a slow go. So people don't like the slow go. They like the fast Eddie, right? That's what people like. So this is where you have to understand that a campaign is about patience. A campaign is about consistency. A campaign is about clarity of message. When you send your information out, what are you basically saying? And it should always include something that you're teaching or educating people about something they may not know about. Now, I don't know if everybody that's listening today knows this, but we are about to enter a firecracker market. It's coming. I'm telling you, I'm going to say it today. I'll say it tomorrow. I'll say it in December. We are about to enter a firecracker market. We have been in a suppressed market for the last 2 years. A suppressed market is where people are just like, everything's weird. We don't know what to do. What's happening in the world? Tariffs, wars, all this other political stuff. And people can only hold back and be suppressed for so long. And now the market's starting. I see cracks coming. And it's like where you see those cracks coming, and then all of a sudden the dam is going to burst wide open. So there's no better time right now to get yourself positioned for a strong 2026 by creating a campaign, right? By getting yourself involved with and maybe even looking at the month it is right now, we're just come into September. What a great opportunity to spend September and October, work on your campaigns and get them out there, November, December, January, February, March, and keep going. So, and just because your campaign isn't getting you something instant, it doesn't mean that you're not growing, that those seeds are not growing, because they really are. What you're planting, you will harvest one day. But the one day, remember, is slow and steady. It's not fast, Eddie. Okay. So you also want to create campaigns that will get results. And a result to me is either where somebody does notice and maybe makes a comment or says something. A result could be where someone's saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing something," or "Hey, I just want to comment on something that you sent recently," even if it's something a little controversial that gets you into a dialogue or discussion. That's, to me, that's results. Okay. Now, when you think about your business right now, the reality is that most real estate agents spend so much time hiding out and not enough time actually getting in front of new people. I'm not talking about your old database. I'm talking about new people. Do you have a campaign even just to stay in front of people, right? So what is that campaign to stay in front of people to get noticed? Now, do you guys remember a couple years ago, I talked about this, and some of you will know if you're an Encore and some of you won't. And I said, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to make I'm going to be responsible single-handedly. I want to be a strong voice for new construction in Washington State, and particularly around the challenges that we have at the planning, processing, permitting stage. And I literally started and set up a campaign for that. It wasn't a campaign where I was sending out mailers. It was a campaign where I was getting in front of people at our local legislative affairs meeting, getting in front of people at the board of directors that I'm on, getting in front of people at the state level, going to Washington, D.C. I really sat down and said, okay, how am I going to get noticed, remembered, and respected? And you do that by having a campaign, deciding what it is you want to say and what it is you want to stand for, and how you're going to go about doing that. Don't be afraid to say things that may feel that they are a little bit controversial. If there's something going on in the real estate world and you're not for it, or you are for it, have a voice, have an opinion. So, what are you doing to get in touch and in front of new people? Now, I will also say it's one of the least favorite things I do. I don't want to get around new people. I like my old people, okay? I like my encore people. I love my clients. I don't want to get in front of new people at a new meeting. But guess what? It's part of the campaign. And I do it. And then after a while, those new people become old people and they become special people and they become people that can help me to get where I want to go in that particular arena. It's the same thing in real estate. If you are not getting out there and getting in front of new people, you need to ask yourself why. Because most of you, I've said this many times to many different people, all you need to do is show up. You're just so wonderful. In fact, you do better when you're in front of people, right? And a lot of you don't do so well when you're just hiding out at home. It's comfortable, but that's not when you shine. You shine when there's people around. That's your personality. That's who you are. That's where you get your energy. So you might need to get in front of some new people. So that's the first question I always ask people. What's in your little drip campaign, even to get some new people in front of you? Because that's super important. Now, if what you're doing is hit and miss, you need a campaign. Now, one of the things that I have done on a state level and a national level, which was very smart, and I'm saying this to give you a strategy idea. When we have our meetings, I actually send a recap to everybody that was on that meeting, every single person that says, hey, great meeting today. This is what sounds to me like is our main focus. And here are some things that I'd like to offer, some thoughts or whatever. Now, if not anything else, I'm known. And getting known is important for any campaign. That's what a campaign is, being known, top of mind. I recently have had 3 or 4 very powerful email engagements where, in one case, a very prominent person with NAHB emailed me and said, hey, I saw something you did in a meeting, very impressive. And I'd like to talk to you more about that. And then another thing I was asked, hey, could you lead a committee on this? Because wow, you spoke about this and you were very passionate about this. And that issue was women in construction. I'm very passionate about women in construction. And I spoke to that issue. And then I was asked at the state level can you lead our workforce housing and getting women in the workforce? Can you lead that? That's that is an example not of me doing anything great other than consciously having a campaign where I said, okay, if I do these meetings, at least afterwards, I'm going to send an email. I'm going to make sure that I attend the meetings. I'm going to make sure I have something to say at these meetings. And Shauna will know there is probably not a meeting that I go to because we're both on government affairs for the Building Industry Association of Whatcom County. There is not a meeting that I go to there where I don't have an opinion on something. I don't just sit in that meeting and say nothing. I make it my job to let people know how do I feel about something. And that's important because people there trust my voice, right? So if there's something controversial, they actually like to hear, well, what does Denise think about that? And I've had people call me and say, hey, Denise, what did you think about that? On other meetings that I've been at. And I've really taken that as, okay, people do care to know what I think about that. And that's the same thing with your campaigns. Let people know what you think about the stuff that's going on right now with Zillow and Compass. Tell them what you think. What do you think about what's going on there right now with inventory at record high levels and we can't bring the median price point down? What's going on there? Let people know. Let people know what you think about. Maybe it's an investment idea. Maybe it's a thought about something. Maybe it's about zoning. Maybe it's about de-annexation, whatever. What do you think about it? Let people know your opinion on things and they learn to trust your voice. That's what a campaign is. A campaign is getting noticed and getting people to trust you. Okay. Now, I'm going to say this today. I remember saying this back in 2021. I remember saying it in May of 2022. I remember saying it in 2005. I remember saying it in 2003. And I remember saying it in 2011. This is the moment right now for a campaign. This moment in time is really, really you're going to remember this because this moment we have the most fence sitters we have had in real estate in 15 years. We have got people sitting on the fence that believe that they cannot take action, and that is actually not accurate. So we've got this wonderful, huge, long backup buyers that want to buy. We also have this great big another backlog of sellers that have wanted to sell but just don't think that the timing is right because they're watching the market and they're watching the news and the media's there's a lot of weirdness going on. So they're just like, I don't think this is the moment. But this is the moment to get people ready because we are going to have a very, very robust end of December right into 2026. And we're going to see an early start to the market this year. I said that 2 years ago, and that's what happened. And I'm going to tell you again, it's going to be robust. Now, when you think about creating any kind of a campaign, the first thing you need to do is define what is it you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish instant business, this is probably not for you. If you want instant business, you'd be better off to go and spend all kinds of money on some huge social media campaign that would get you leads, which are those things that you want, but that don't end up doing anything. I cannot tell you how many people I know that have done very robust social media campaigns that did not, and expensive, that did not get them those direct leads that they wanted. I've taken those same clients and said, okay, slow down. Instead of spending money necessarily on social media ads, why don't you go into your Facebook friends, go in there, look at every single relationship you have and ask, how could you improve upon that? And make a conscious effort, whether that is just remarking on something that they've talked about or posting something that's more relevant. So again, really, you have to know what's the goal of this. If you're trying to cultivate relationships and you want to just grow that base and you want 500 new people, that's one goal. Or is it that you just want to focus on getting 5 transactions next year in your farm? If that's the difference, right? Because 5 transactions versus 500 new people, that's a big difference, right? For me, just the thought of having to work on 500 new relationships is exhausting to me. Okay, I could work within my farm. I could actually, maybe what I could do is maybe I could take 20 of the homes in my farm and really do an interesting last 20-year analysis of that property and how it's gone up and down in value over the last 20 years and show them where it's at right now. And work on 20 of those, send out 20 and see if I get any responses, right? Quality over quantity is often the best way that will lead to success. And that's why in my farming, the quality of the paper mattered. The quality of the content mattered. My message mattered. My call to action mattered. The photographs mattered, right? So getting that quality to come up. So you really need to think about what your campaign goals are.
And
The other
Denise,
thing,
just on
yeah,
that point too, there one of those things is in your control. The cultivating relationships piece is in your control. Whether or not you're going to get those 5 transactions, that's not in your control. So you
right.
need to focus on things that are within your control as you're determining these goals.
And what I always, what helped me was, Denise, and I always said this to myself, your job is not to count leads. Your job is to count your mailers. Okay. And the reason I say that is that I couldn't control the leads as they came in. Sometimes they'd be like, oh my God, where'd that come from? That's crazy. That, like, and we all have that where we get a lead from something that we thought we would never get a lead from. And
Right.
I've had that happen many, many, many times. And other times where you want to get your leads from, like a campaign but you've been working on steady for a couple of years, it doesn't happen. But if you're not getting anything, you might want to just change up the message a little bit, right? So in order to develop your campaign, you have to develop a campaign based on what your goals are. Okay. So for me, my goals were simple. I want to get known in this area as the person in this area that solves people's real estate challenges. And that's one of the things that I did on a regular basis in my farming was I always had a section called red flags. Okay. And I had a little red flag. And in that section, I would talk about things that occurred, right? Little red flag things and how we address that. And it could be something as simple as here's a red flag. Red flag is that mother decides that she wants to do gift funds to a buyer. Oh, but guess what? Mother then goes on an extended trip to New Zealand, and guess what? They won't allow signing in New Zealand. She can't docu-sign. She's got to hard sign this document because it's a deed of trust, and she has to be on. She's gift funding, but her daughter did not qualify. So, for example, she's got to do a wet signature. And guess what? It's not going to close unless this happens. What can you do? And then coming up with a solution. I cannot tell you how many problems I created and came up with the solutions to help people understand that real estate is a business that has become more complex because of all the reporting, all of the tracking, all of the, you name it, all the number of forms that we have today versus 10 years ago. Oh my goodness. And if you buy real estate in California, you guys, the packages are, my goodness, I hope what they've got going on in California doesn't come to Washington State because the forms are unbelievable. You got to settle in and read a book because there's many chapters to buying a piece of property or selling a piece of property in California. So the things that I've noticed in different areas, I also talk about that. I talk about how real estate is different in different areas. So think about what your goals are, and your goals should be to execute a successful campaign. And in a successful campaign, there's things you think about. Targeting. Who are you targeting and why? Why that target? I started this when I said, you know what? I'm going to sell the $1 million homes. I'm done selling the less expensive stuff. And back then, $1 million home was like a $5 million home today, right? So it's like when you decide not just to get above that point, but you're going to the big stuff. And I said, okay, I'm going to target waterfront, water view, multi-million dollar homes in this particular area. I defined my target market. I set a budget and I said, okay, my budget is going to be, and remember, you don't have, your base isn't as big when your target, that's a smaller target market, right? Price points higher, there's less multi-million dollar homes. And then my budget was simple. Okay, with this demographic, I can't just send out a, 8.5 by 11 or a flyer. I always sent out a 4-page, very nice brochure. So my printing costs and my mailing costs were more, and I decided that was okay. That was my budget because my numbers were smaller. My target was smaller. And then what was the media I was using? There's two things that I use. Number one, I did my monthly mailers like clockwork. And number two, I had lots to say in that area's local newspaper where I actually had a column. And in that column, I talked about all the challenges with water view, waterfront property. And I tell you, that was extremely effective. My frequency was I mailed out monthly and I was in that paper twice a month. And twice a month, I was always coming up with problem solution. My whole column was about everything that could ever possibly go wrong in real estate and how to navigate it. That's really what it was about. And it was like, if there's a problem, bring it my way, I'll answer it. I had people that would send in questions. I had people from the paper that were like, oh, we get a lot of calls on your column. We're just keeping a list of questions. And I had a base of questions that I could come back and answer. I'd thank people. Hey, Mary, thank you so much for asking this question. This is a doozy. And then I would answer it. I loved it. One of my favorite things I ever did was being able to answer problem questions in the column. So that was really, really effective. So again, you've got to think about your campaign. What is it going to look like? When you think about targeting the campaign, what is that target market going to be? Who is the target market? Where is the target market? Target market? Why this target market? And for me, I just felt, you know what? This is a market for this. And remember, I also had a target market of a very, 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 I would say low end. My first farm was the lowest end you could get in the area. It was a townhouse complex. It was in a location that wasn't great. It was right by a freeway. Talk about the lowest price properties in the area, but that was my farm. I targeted that for a specific reason, and that was, quite frankly, I was so new in the industry, I didn't have the confidence to ever think I could sell $1 million home. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell this stuff because there seems to be a lot of turnover. And I chose my first farm area based on turnover. And I was shocked at how often people would move into this development and move out. And do you know 90% of the time why they moved out? Because they were too close to the freeway and the traffic noise was horrific. So it was like people were just, it was like a revolving door in that development. It's a great farm for me, extremely effective. So think about who that target market is going to be. And then think about your budget. Budgeting is very simple because budgeting in any kind of a campaign that you do, let's imagine it's a geographical farm. You have to think about it as what is my per person cost in order to have this farm? Or if you're going to do a social media campaign, what is my per person cost to actually get a lead? Now, one thing I'm going to say that is really interesting when we look at the difference between mail campaigns and the difference between online campaigns, we get this very false sense of, oh, look at how many people viewed this on social media. We can't see that in our farming, right? We can't get that instant, oh, look at how many shares I've got, or look at how many people have liked it or commented on it. So a lot of times people mistaken the what I would say is sometimes some online etiquette, like even with Facebook. A lot of times people will go in and make comments to you just because they've got time to, or they know you, or they like you. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily going to be a lead. So this is where you really have to think about budgeting on this, right? What is it going to cost? What is your real true cost? Go ahead, Shauna.
I was just going to say that actually in the world of online marketing, what's called attribution is very, very difficult. And I thought about this the other day that really that ties in very well with print marketing as well. Attribution means that you can actually quantify where a lead came from. And so if you're doing like a really diverse online lead program. So like, let's say you're doing email marketing, let's say you're doing social media, maybe some Google AdWords is kind of a little bit better and a little easier to track, but it's not the what action caused somebody to pick up the phone, click something like that. It's all the cumulative pieces of this that actually probably led to that. None of that gets credited. But and the same thing happens with your print marketing too. You know, you could actually be making an impression every time you're sending out the mail, and you are. I mean, people get a stack of mail. You have to do something with that piece of mail. Whereas, like with an email, you can just easily delete it. So that attribution piece is difficult, and that makes this difficult to budget because people want to say, "Oh, well, it makes the most sense because I spent like 10 cents on this lead versus on this piece of marketing versus $1.25 on this piece of marketing. I should be getting a higher result from the $1.25, but you don't know. It's all the attribution that is difficult to track, and it makes it difficult to budget. But you got to do the budget, and it's got to be a consistent budget too.
You can't be afraid to, I don't like the word spend the money, invest in the money. I can't, it's an investment. I will say that any type of long-term campaign is an investment. That it just is. It has to be. And the thing that you have to look at, if you really want to quantify it, it may take you a year to know what that number is, or 2 years or 3 years. But remember, the longer you do a campaign, the more likely you will have a return on that campaign. Unless your quality is poor. And by the way, I have over the years worked with many agents that have said to me, "Oh yeah, I send something out every month." And I go, let me see what you send out. And it's generic, it's company generated, it doesn't have their voice, it has the voice of the company. That's not going to get you noticed. That may get you, again, you're in the right time, right place at the right time, and that may get you a call or two. But I'm talking about if you really want people to know who you are and remember who you are, you have to say something. And you either say it with numbers and stats and data, but even when I include data, I will have my opinion, and I don't just put a chart in there. I will say, let me tell you the impact that this data is showing in our market. And then I explain what it is, and they're like, oh, okay, now she's talking to me. You really have to look at your mailers and ask yourself, and any marketing you do, and ask yourself, what is it trying to say? And some of the best marketing says less, right? So you really have to think about what is your message. And that's where it's hard to be that critical, but it is really effective. And that's where I remember I had a campaign that I did one time, and the campaign was very simple, and it was just say no. Okay. And this was a very successful campaign. There was a townhouse development in my area. I didn't even farm this, but I knew from farming Guilford Mews, the one that was by the freeway, I knew that it was just a matter of time before some great big developer was going to come in and make a big offer to them, right? And it would have been a big low offer. And I started hearing grumblings, and I started going to some of the planning meetings, and I went to every meeting around this discussion about zoning changes in this particular area. And what my message to these townhome owners was, just say no when you get the letter from the real estate agent saying, hey, we're going to have a meeting to discuss the potential of you selling. Say no to that meeting because they really just want your listing, right? They shouldn't even be pre marketing themselves when the zoning hasn't even been changed. So that's say no because it's a waste of your time. Say no when you go to city council meetings or when you go to the planning department meetings and they're asking for your input. Say no because you're not qualified to give it. There's too many studies that still have to be done. It's not your time to say yes yet. And I did this whole campaign around saying no to an offer that would come in because it's not going to be your top dollar offer. And I did this whole just say no campaign, and it was educational. And I did it because, and it wasn't even my farm area, and it was not a long-term campaign, but it was a campaign that brought enough awareness to educate this particular group of people. And I found at one of the meetings I went to, I walked into the meeting, everybody there, it was a city council meeting, and it was a public remarks evening. All these homeowners showed up for this meeting because they were giving comments because the city was talking about the possibility of rezoning this to, we're talking high rise, concrete building. So big, we're talking big stuff up in Vancouver. And the homeowners were educated. The homeowners showed up. The homeowners had a voice. And when I walked in, people knew me. I never met these people. They knew me from my mailings. Oh my gosh, you're here. Thank goodness. Can you speak to this? And I got up as an agent and was able to say, as an agent, city council, let me explain something. We've got developers right now that are swarming all over these homeowners, and city, you don't have enough information to make any of these decisions right now. Everything sounds good. It's the developer talking, but we need more. We need to have impact studies, environmental studies, wetland studies, and all these studies. And at that point, the city council voted the following week to just to not do anything until all the studies were done. Why that was so important is because it meant that potential developer, or any potential developers, would have to first go through all the steps and the hoops, find out all the studies before the city just changed the zoning. And that was what I wanted. That was back then when I wasn't even interested in development. That was just something that I felt the public needed. That campaign was it was a knowledge-based campaign. I just wanted to get the word out about something. And that area, those people in that area, when they did decide to sell, I had tons of business from that development. And that was not a long-term campaign. That was a campaign that lasted about 6 months. So again, think about it. And in my case, I budgeted also for, okay, I've got to do some good for this community. I see something that's happening here. So I'm going to do a campaign for the next 6 months, get some awareness out there. And it was an amount of money I was willing to spend to help do the right thing. The next thing you have to think about is, where is this message going to? Is it mail? Is it going to be print mail? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be video? What is your media going to be for this? And in many cases, I just have learned over the years that quality over quantity often works best. Also, quality of the content, quality of the paper, quality of the delivery, quality of the quality works best. And I see that a lot even in the marketing of products. Sometimes it's the packaging that, think about the Tiffany box. Tiffany box is just an actual cheap box, but the color of it, and it's got the little gold engraving of the logo. It's just sometimes how things are packaged. So really consider that. That's important. And then the frequency. Consistency is the hardest thing you will ever have to master in real estate. Consistency, but consistency is the most important determiner of your success. Do you know that? The consistency of the actions that you take. Now, I'll give you an example. I've had my little eye surgery, right? So my eyes are bugging me. I didn't want to be up this morning early doing my hour of power. Oh my goodness. It's very easy for me to say, oh, Denise, you had eye surgery. It's going to, just stay in bed. That's not going to help me. It's only going to make me feel worse about myself. I still always stay to that consistent schedule because that guides me and gets me through the day, right? Frequency, consistency, that's critically important. Okay, so in summary, Shauna, I'm going to give a summary and then you can give a summary from your perspective because you and I have both worked with agents over 20 some years now. And what I find is at the moment in time when agents are most likely to want to stop a campaign is actually when it's probably most likely to turn into success. It's that point of where you haven't heard anything or nobody's responding and you're getting exhausted and all you're doing is you're doing your campaign, but that's why it's so, so, so important to be consistent.
Yeah.
Consistency is critical.
I think also, I think that there's always an expectation when somebody sends out a mailer or sends out posts a
Yeah.
social media post or whatever your media is, that you're going to get something. And Jamie likes to call this, are you yelling into the void? And I think that there's always disappointment when that doesn't return right away, or it doesn't return, after a few months, after 6 months. But I can't reiterate enough the impression that this is leaving, that then the thing is that campaigns work. We know that campaigns work. We know that people will call. We've had situations in which we've had clients that have received, actually in one case, 14 listings off of one piece of mail. We had somebody else, our client down in Arizona, who sent out a letter. It was just a letter to her, like 100 people, and she wound up getting 3 responses and 3 listing appointments. Then you've got people that
Terry that started the expired listing campaign only to call me to say, that was a crazy example. That's a great example where
right.
I had an agent that was like, listen, I need to win and I need to win big. Tell me what I need to do right now. And I said, great, do an expired listing campaign, but don't even do it unless you're going to follow it exactly. Here's what it looks like. Follow it exactly, and you're going to get listings. And I remember her calling me 3 months later, like literally almost in tears, saying, oh my God, I should have never started this. This is terrible. I'm just like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thinking she didn't have anything. And she said, what am I going to do? I've got 37 listings and I can't even, I'm like overloaded. And I forgot to tell her only work 10 at a time and then stop because you can't do more than 10, right? And that was my number. Probably her number was 5. She was ready to go crazy. And she was so confident after learning that, oh, this is what I have to do in order to get my business, that she'd go and work all those listings, then not do it again. And then the following year, okay, I think I want a few more listings. Great, I'm going to work expired listings for the next 8 weeks, and that's it. I get all my leads for the year. So campaigns work, but you got to work them. Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is too, is that especially if you're opting into like a long-term campaign, stop getting in your own way. Just,
Right.
just stop with the whole, refining to perfection because then it doesn't get out and then you wind up missing a month and then honestly, if you're signing on for a 12-month campaign, mail for 12 months. You need to just keep that consistency factor up and just not don't even pay attention and not even have the expectation that you're going to get anything. Just trust that the campaign is good, it will deliver the results, and just chill out.
Yeah,
That's my advice. I do have a couple questions here for you if you've got a second.
I do.
Okay. Denise, you indicated that this is the moment for a campaign. There's a lot of opportunity coming up. So if you were selling real estate today, what are some audiences that you would target?
First of all, I would target every single buyer that I had right now, and I would tell them that there will not be another moment where our inventory is peaked to this high level. Because the moment we're already seeing it now, where interest rates have come down a little bit and we've got people to jump off the fence, the minute that those interest rates come down a little bit more, and they will, you can have buyers come off the fence and we're going to be eating up that inventory, and then we don't have enough inventory to replace it. And we're going to go right back into a crazy steroid market where sellers again are going to have the advantage. Right now, we are in a market where buyers have the advantage and they have that advantage right now, but that advantage is not going to last. So that's my one buyer campaign. Okay. And it's strong. Buyers right now should be buying. They should not be waiting for interest rates to go down. The other area where I see a lot of opportunity right now is in the I would say with sellers right now that have been that sellers that have decent inventory to list and they're ready to put it at a, I'll call it a market competitive rate because those listings are getting bid up like crazy. I just had a client a couple weeks ago call me to ask me this exact situation. She had a property in Bellevue and she, well, I think it's about, I think we probably get 2-1. I said, I don't think you're going to get 2-1 if you put it at 2-1. I think you might get 2-1 if you put it at 1,999. And her and I went back and forth on it, back and forth, back and forth. And I said, well, let's look at everybody else that's listed at 2,122. They're sitting and they've been sitting a while. But now let's look at that right at under 2 million. Oh my God, look at this thing sold. And it's not even nearly as nice as yours, and it sold for above ask. So there is something in this market in this moment in Bellevue, listing it right under that 2 number worked very well. And that's what she did. She listed it right under, and then she got like 4 offers and they bid it up. And it wasn't bid up right to that 2-1 that she wanted. It was pretty darn close. It was the closest that she would get. So really being able to also the opportunity right now is the ability to consult with people that want to sell. And also, I know people, some people are saying, well, wait, why don't they just wait till that steroid market? They could. Absolutely. It's all about timing in the market. But why, when they could sell right now, still get top dollar as a seller and then get a really good value on the buying side? So there is an opportunity here right now for both buyers and sellers, and we're not going to have that again for a very long time. We're going to move out of this market. The spring's going to be crazy hectic again. So this is the moment right now. Big opportunities right now.
Yeah, I think that maybe even looking at, and this will be market specific, but expire to cancel listings in your area. I mean, especially those that were not marketed properly, or, maybe we're close to market price, but maybe we're a little bit over and just sat there for a while. I think that there may be some opportunity there too, but that warrants some research on your part first to determine that. Okay, Denise, number 2, I am interested in finding sellers who are on the fence, and there are companies that say they specialize in determining which sellers are the hottest. What do you think of the effectiveness of this type of targeting?
I don't. That's just because I don't. Okay, just because I've lived somewhere for so many years, that means I'm likely to sell. Just because my house is priced in this arena, I'm likely to sell just because of, so it's all sounds good and anybody can do the math and go, and you don't need a company or to pay leads for that. If that's really what you want to do, just go ask your title person and get you a list of people that have lived in their houses longer than 20 years. But that's not, there are people out there that have lived in their houses 2 years and want to sell. What you are better off to do is you're better to target a high turnover area. That's what I like to look at, is areas that have a high turnover. That's how I found my first farm. My first farm, it's like, whoa, there's lots of activity in here. Oh my goodness. And I remember even people disagreed with my philosophy back there, where I would drive by. This is how archaic my system was, but how well it worked. I would drive by townhouse developments that had gazillion signs in the front. And while my other agents in the office were, well, that just shows that there's lots of inventory and it's not selling. No, it shows me that there's a desire to sell here. And whenever there's a desire to sell here, you will always find motivation. When people want out and they actually say, I'm ready to sell, trust me, they are ready to sell. So I looked at that as motivation, not as I wouldn't farm there. There's too many listings. Oh, bring it on. I was happy to take those dump dive developments all day long because I know people would buy in because it solved a problem for them when they first bought in. They needed something affordable enough to buy into. Then after a couple of years, they were like, okay, we've got ourselves established and whatever. We want to sell now and get something else. So I am very much about looking for opportunities based on motivation, not looking at just some list that some company is going to charge you money to get a list that I don't think you're going to get the return on your investment.
I think too, you can go to your title company and actually sit down with them and look at the different demographics that they can pull up for you. Because oftentimes they can pull up things like magazine subscriptions and so if
Totally.
you are like targeting people that like maybe are going through like let's say you're targeting two-bedroom houses and you know who's subscribing to a new parenting magazine, that could be an indication that somebody may need to make a move, you know, those kind of things. So get creative. I think if you've got a good title rep who's willing to do that research with you, or even a company like we have AMS up here in Blaine, a print and mail company, there's a lot of demographics that can be drilled down that could create you a decent list. Okay, Denise, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just consistency, guys. Consistency. It's not about the instant fix. It is consistency over time creates greatness in your business.
Absolutely.
And consistency also helps you when I will say that some of the best work I've ever done, even in my hour of power, were the days that I didn't want to be doing it. You just got to do it, right? So if you've got a campaign, forge forward. If you don't, I would get a campaign. I'd be campaigning all day long. I love
Absolutely.
campaigns.
Well,
Okay.
we're going to, again, next week, we're going to dive into part two of our series, how to build a campaign from start to finish. So we're going to actually pull out some documents, move some things around, create a target, and actually show
Yeah.
you what that looks like. We're going to give you the tools too to make creating a campaign snap and fun. You're going to be able to put these tools to work right away. So we'll see you again next week. And until then, be thinking about who you want to target for your campaign. Thank you, everyone.
Here,
Bye-bye.
guys.